Welcome everyone to the Wellness Masterclass entitled, Why Am I So Exhausted? How Your Sleep Has Changed and What You Can Do About It, with the legendary Michael Breus. And more about Michael in just a moment. I'm Nancy Davis, Chief Creative Officer and Executive Director of both the Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute, and your host for today's call. I want to thank Christine Mogadam, founder of Core Yoga, our generous sponsor for this Wellness Masterclass. This is the first year we are having these calls sponsored, and as long as we have generous supporters like Christine and Cork Yoga, you will all continue to enjoy these events without cost. So much gratitude, and I'm going to be asking Christine to comment a bit later in this call. Before introducing Michael, I want to introduce Susie Ellis, Chair and CEO of both the Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute. Susie is someone who prioritizes sleep and has long known that sleep is a foundational pillar of health and wellness. Susie?
Thank you, Nancy, and welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome, Michael Breus. Delighted that you're here. And I was just listening to your presentation at our summit on how to be better in bed, or yes, how to be better in bed. So that was fantastic. And I just wanted to let everyone know, and Michael, I don't know if you know this, but this is the latest research from the Global Wellness Institute. And it's the mental wellness report. And there's a section in here on sleep. And so if you have it, for all of you who do, it's on page 65. And there's a lot of information about the businesses in this subsector, sample companies, market innovators, because sleep is a big deal in the wellness world. So just wanted to point that out. It's a free. You can go to the Global Wellness Institute.org website and you can get this for free, but it's an additional good resource. So thank you for that, Nancy. Welcome, Michael, and I'm so excited to hear what you have to share with us today.
Thanks, Susie. And we'll make sure that the link to the report is on the follow-up email when we send this out after the event, which we send out later today. Also on this call, other members of our team, Michelle Gamble, Beatrice Hotchegger, Betsy Israelite, Kendra Kobler, and others. We have the best team ever, and it's always wonderful to have them part of these calls. A very quick refresher on Zoom, since we're all experts by now. Just remind you that Beatrice is going to keep everyone muted just to eliminate background noise. You can view this call in the speaker gallery view and make that choice at the top right of your Zoom window. And continue to use the chat function, please. Tell us where you're from. Feel free to post the name or website of your company and post a question. We also share the chat, not just the recording of this call. So there's always a lot of information in the chat, and it's really great that everybody gets to have that. Thank you so much for all your cooperation. Okay, now it's my very unique pleasure to introduce Michael Breus, known the world over as the sleep doctor. Michael presented a fabulous keynote, which Susie just mentioned, at the 2020 Global Wellness Summit. And there was so much more to discuss that I promised we would invite him to be our guest at a Wellness Masterclass. So here we are. I'm not going to talk too much about Michael's resume because it would take the time we have. Just suffice it to say he is uniquely qualified, world-renowned, appears frequently on TV, has every professional accreditation and then some, is an educator, consultant, best-selling author. Like I said, we don't have time. But the follow-up email that we send will contain Michael's bio, links to his websites, and all the information that will help you know him even more. I think it's fair to say that sleep is one of the most talked about topics globally, and even more so because of the pandemic. Much has been written this past year about the impact of sleep, for instance, on our immune system. Sleep also has mythic stature in all forms of literature, poetry, fiction, nonfiction, children's books. People write memoirs about their insomnia. There are books about the science of sleep. Neuroscience and sleep. Sleepwalking is another topic. Somnambulists write of their personal experiences with sleeplessness and those bizarre dark hours. Sleep, perchance to dream. Miles to go before I sleep. Even Nietzsche got into the act. Sleeping is no mean art. For its sake, one must stay awake all day. You get the idea. The thing is that sleep, while being a basic element of our lives, continues to be misunderstood. We hear so much about circadian rhythms, internal clocks. We try to conquer jet lag. We have personal rituals attached to sleep. We wear sleep masks. We're obsessed with mattresses and organic sheets. And we have invited technology into our bedrooms. And now we're not sure what to do about that. There are conflicting theories around every aspect of sleep. And so today, Michael Breus will help us unpack those theories, separate fact from fiction, give us a way to understand the science, and maybe, just maybe, we will all sleep better tonight. Michael, if you unmute, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. That was, I mean, I want you to introduce me every single time. I'm just
No
saying
problem.
that was the best ever. Absolutely. Also, I wanted to make a quick shout out to Christine. Thank you again for sponsoring this event today. So much appreciation for you and for all that you're doing for us. So thank you once again. I'm excited to be here. Like, this is my favorite thing to do, is to hang out, talk sleep, and kind of mix it up a little bit. So I'm looking forward to, answering questions. Nancy's got quite a few. You can throw a couple in the chat if you're interested as well. But we've got a whole host of issues to cover. And right now, I would agree with you, Nancy. Now is a particularly difficult time in all of our lives for sleep. So, there's no judgment here if you're not sleeping well. This is the place to learn more about why that's happening, and maybe a few things that can help you personally sleep a little bit better, or help somebody in your organization or your organization itself maybe sleep a little bit better. So I'm excited to be here, ready to mix it up with you.
We're so excited that you are here. First of all, tell us how you've been. How has this year been for you? Because when you and I talked, you were busier than ever and doing interesting things.
I'll be honest with you. This has been one of the most purposeful years I feel like I've ever had. I'm very fortunate. I live in Southern California, and I practice, sleep medicine, and I get to do all these fun things, be on television, and work with all these cool new products, and have all these interesting sleep-related experiences. But the truth of the matter is right now, no time has ever occurred where more people have had sleep difficulties than right now, even more so than right when we first all started learning about COVID and the disorder. But in truth, more and more people are having significant problems. Now, what we've seen is an acute insomnia type of situation, a stress-related insomnia situation, turn into a chronic insomnia situation in many, many cases. And so we really want to start to drill down and understand why that's occurring. And we feel that a lot of that has to do with isolation, right? Because people are staying isolated for extended periods of time, losing connection, and then unfortunately not moving a lot. I know you and I talked about this. You were surprised to hear the sleep doctor say things like, hey, people have got to move more. One of the things that's important for everyone to understand is sleep is recovery. Right? If you don't do anything to recover from, you ain't gonna sleep too well, for sure, right? And so this movement really helps our entire body and our body system to know and understand when are we supposed to be calm and when are we supposed to be up and alert. So, now is a time of very extreme situations, but at the same time, it is a wealth of opportunity for better sleep, believe it or not. Guess what? We don't have our schedules that we used to have, which was forcing us into certain swim lanes, if you will, for sleep. And so I would argue that now, even though it's stressful, we have an opportunity to sleep better than ever.
And just how do we approach that? How do we do that? What do we need to know that we don't know?
So if I could give everybody one hint or one tip, it's wake up at the same time every single day. Everybody's going to learn I'm an incredibly practical person. I'm going to give very practical tips that all have real science behind them. So when you look at waking up at the same time every single day, and by the way, that's including the weekends. I know that kind of stinks for people. People are like, come on. But you really do need to make sure that you wake up, including the weekends. Great study came out about 3 weeks ago looking at this very thing. What they discovered was they had people who were sleeping 6 hours for 5 days a week, and then 8 hours for 2 days a week. So that would represent the weekend. They measured focus, memory, attention, and mood across 6 weeks. Guess what? everybody went down as the course of time, even with these 8-hour on the weekend, catch up times. So folks, you cannot catch up on sleep. That is number one. Number two, wake up at the same time every single day. What it also does is it keeps your circadian rhythm finely tuned. When your brain knows what to do.
Does it mean you have to go to sleep at the same time as well, or
Not
only wake
necessarily.
up?
I'm only pushing for the wake up time. It's
Okay.
on you as a human to decide what time you want to go to bed. Now, to be fair, sometimes that could be earlier, sometimes that could be later. My preference, of course, is to do it based on something called your chronotype. So for folks out there who don't know what a chronotype is, you may not have heard of the term, but you've actually heard of it before. If you've ever been called an early bird or a night owl, these are chronotypes. And so it turns out there's not 3, there's 4 of them. And once you know your chronotype, it's remarkable how much better your whole life goes.
And I'm gonna put a plug in because Michael is too nice to, but he has a website where you can go, and we'll put this in the follow-up, and you can determine your chronotype by taking a kind of online survey, a little quiz. And it does really help to know, it's reassuring in a way to know what your chronotype is, right?
Well, so what's cool about knowing your chronotype is it kind of gives you like the secret key to everything. And I know that sounds like quite a big claim there. So let me back up for just a second. So every human has hormones that rise and fall in a very predictable fashion. What's interesting about that is the beginning of this cycle occurs when you wake up. When you have an early chronotype, your body wakes up sometimes before your brain does. And that happens early. Whereas if you're a late chronotype like me, even if you force your brain to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, my brain might still be using a little bit of melatonin. And so that makes it much more harder for me to work. And so what we see is this disparity in hormonal structure, right? So everybody has the same structure, just happens at different times. So this gets very, very interesting when we talk about things like intimacy, when we talk about things like communication, when we talk about things like when to have your first cup of coffee. So there's a lot of interesting data that we can surround about these hormones and chronotypes.
So is it waking up or actually getting up and doing something? Someone asked, can we wake up and read in bed for a while? Or do we get up?
Great question. So I want you to wake up and get up. In fact, there's a couple of other things that I'm recommending for people to do in the mornings. When you do wake up at this very consistent wake up time, 5 deep breaths in to just wake up your respiratory system, right? Just honor yourself, know where you are, 5 good deep breaths in. Then swing your legs over. Sitting on your bedside should be a reusable cup, and it should have room temperature water in it, roughly 20 to 30 ounces of room temperature water in it. Nancy, did you know that most people don't know it, but sleep in and of itself is a dehydrative event? From the humidity in our breath, we lose almost a full liter of water every single night. So we wake up dehydrated. Unfortunately, lots of people like to grab a cup of coffee as the first liquid that passes over their lips. Remember, folks, caffeine is a diuretic. It makes you have to urinate. So not a good idea to do that. We want water to hydrate. The other thing that we want to do is get some light into our eyeballs. What are you talking about, Michael? Why on earth would we want light? So sunlight or even artificial light, there are light boxes that are available now. I think I saw somebody buy in the chat who was talking about lighting. Yep. There is such a thing as circadian lighting. And you can actually, so if you wake up and it's 5 o'clock in the morning and there's no sun out, but this is your normal wake up time, there is special commercially available lights that you can use to help actually turn off that melatonin faucet in your brain, right? Get rid of that brain fog and start your day off right. So do you wake up at the same time? Yes, but get your butt out of bed, breathe, drink some water, and get some sunshine. By the way, if you can go outside and get the sunshine, then you get fresh air, and that's good for you too.
Then, somebody posted what I was thinking, and that is this whole thing about lemon water in the morning and everybody having lemon water. Is that anything,
So there's nothing wrong with adding a little citrus to that. As a matter of fact, there is some data to suggest there could be some vitamin C, and there are benefits to having vitamin C in the morning, especially during times like COVID. So I got no problem. You want to throw a whole lemon in there, go for it.
Michael, just in general, the science of sleep.
Right.
What are the misconceptions? I mean, we hear so much about it. What are your top misconceptions and top, pieces of science that we all should know?
So first of all, 8 hours is a myth. Let me just
Okay.
be extremely clear here. If everybody out there is striving for 8 hours, remember something, your amount of sleep need is individual. Everybody has a different sleep need. Let me explain to you what I do. I go to bed at midnight. I wake up at 6:13, literally every single day without an alarm. I don't know why it's 6:13. It just seems to happen that way. Come on, you guys have got weird stuff about you too, all right? Like, let's break it out here. We're just having a regular old discussion, right? And so I only get 6 hours and 13 minutes of sleep, Nancy. I'm the sleep doctor, for God's sakes, right? Like, I mean, come on, what's going on here? It's 7:18 in the morning here in Los Angeles. This is not my normal wake up time. And look how much energy I have, right? It's because of the consistency of my wake up time. My body is ready to be awake now, even though my chronotype is a night owl. But what are some of the things that we need to know? Well, it turns out that sleep has two specific systems in the brain. One is called your sleep drive. The other is called your sleep rhythm. These are two very separate systems, and it's important that people understand this. Your sleep drive is based on actually biology. When a cell eats a piece of glucose, something comes out the back end. One of those things is called adenosine. It works its way through the system and then gets to a very specific receptor site in your brain. As it accumulates, you get sleepier and sleepier and sleepier. Kind of a little sleep geek tip here. If you look at the molecular structure of adenosine and the molecular structure of caffeine, they're off by one molecule. It's kind of bizarre if you think about it, that the thing that goes on inside your head that makes you sleep is off by one molecule for this unbelievably stimulating substance that seems to be sold worldwide and everybody is addicted to. It's kind of bizarre that these things are off by only one molecule. The second system is your circadian rhythm. This is a lot like hunger, right? You ever notice you're hungry around breakfast time, around lunchtime, around dinner time? Same holds true with sleep. Most people, at least on the North American side, it's a little bit different in Europe, have a tendency to want to go to bed somewhere between 10:30 and 11:30 at night. Now, for folks out in Europe who are participating in siestas, which I'm a big fan of, you might go to bed a little bit later, right? That's called a biphasic sleep schedule. So, there's a lot of interesting things that people can understand about sleep drive versus sleep rhythm. Now, the second thing that people might not remember, so I'm going to give you a little high school biology, is sleep cycles. What on earth is a sleep cycle, Dr. Breus? Well, when you go from wake, you go to stage 1 and 2, which we call light sleep, down into stage 3 and 4, back to stage 1 and 2, and then on into REM sleep. This little kind of dance maneuver is very specific, and you follow these steps almost identically. When you go from wake to REM, that's considered one sleep cycle. The average sleep cycle is roughly 90 minutes. I want you to lock that in your brain because we're going to use that calculation in just a second. And the average human has 5 of these cycles. If you multiply 5 times 90, you get 450 minutes of sleep, right? Divided by 60 is 7.5 hours. So this is strange to me, Nancy, but the math doesn't even work, right? Like that didn't equal 8 hours. Like, what's going on here, guys? So thinking about that is important as well. Now, another thing that people like to know is what do these stages actually do? Okay, so let's talk about it for just a second. So I'm not going to say that stages 1 and 2 are unimportant because they make up almost 50% of the night, but what they do happens to be a little bit more on the technical side. What's really interesting, though, is what happens in stage 3 and 4. Stage 3 and 4, we call this beauty sleep. This is your real physical restoration, right? This is where growth hormone is emitted, and this is one of the most important stages of sleep to get as much as you can right now. Why right now, Dr. Breus? Let me explain. So during stages 3 and 4 sleep, this is where we produce something called growth hormone. Growth hormone stimulates the production of something called killer T cells. If you remember back to high school biology, once again, killer T cells are so important for fighting immune threats, so viruses. So these are white blood cells, and they are produced when we're in stage 3, 4 sleep. So what can we do to increase stage 3, 4 sleep? And by the way, it's interesting because some people there's different vernacular. Some people call stage 3, 4 sleep N3, and some people call it slow wave, and some people call it deep. So there's a lot of different kind of ideas out there. But the thing to remember is you want as much of it as you possibly can get. I'm going to explain to you how we can do that in a minute, but the hint here is it has to do with less caffeine, less alcohol, and more exercise. All 3 of those have dramatic effects on stage 3, 4 sleep. But there's another stage that's important, and that's REM sleep. Now, one question I think people might have is, well, how much of each one of these makes up an entire night, right?
Yeah.
So stage 1 represents about 3 to 5% of the night, very, very small. Stage 2 probably almost 45 to almost 50% of the night. Stage 3 and 4, the beauty sleep we just spoke of, about 23 to 22%. And REM sleep, which is what I'm about to speak about, is about 25%. Now, I'm going to show my age. Yes, I'm 53. Hopefully somebody out there has heard of the band REM from Athens, Georgia. Woohoo! All right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Denise is rocking it for me. I love it, Denise. Thank you. So fortunately, I'm with a group of people who can actually appreciate that reference. A lot of times I give this lecture, guys, and they can't figure that out. So what is REM sleep? It's rapid eye movement. Who doesn't love REM? Exactly, Sam. Right. So at the end of the day, what happens during REM sleep is our mental restoration. And that's where it gets really interesting. This is what we've learned, is where we move information from our short-term memory to our long-term memory. We create an organizational substructure inside of our head to deposit information. But here's the thing. We got thousands of pieces of information running in through our eyes and our ears and our nose and our mouth, right? And sometimes it's difficult for our brain to find the right filing cabinet, the right file drawer, and the right file. And so sometimes things get a little wonky and mixed up, and that's where the bizarre nature of our dreams appears to come from. So if you have a dream where you walk downstairs and your dog is eating a bowl of spaghetti with your second grade teacher and you have no idea why, right? Here's what probably happened, right? Is you probably had Italian that night for dinner and you're thinking in your head, oh, that place was good. I think I want to go back. Your dog jumped on your bed for some reason and that kind of upset you. And then your second grader was talking about school, which reminded you of your second grade teacher. And all of those pieces of data coalesced into this wonky kind of weird dream. Now, what's interesting about dreams in and of themselves is I've had a very fortunate opportunity to work on 2 different projects that have been quite fascinating that have to do with dreams. One, people may have seen about 3 weeks ago, there was a study that was released where we were able to actually create a communication tool inside the dream and communicate with the dreamer. Yes, right, exactly. So if anybody saw the movie Inception, it's a little, not like that, to be clear, but we were able to actually get people to lucid dream on command. We had a goggle set, and there's several different methods that we can now reliably do this. And we were able to send a signal in and communicate with the dreamer, and they were able to send a signal out. It's extremely, extremely rudimentary. But what's cool about it for me is I'm interested, if we can really develop this type of technology, my goal is to go inside of a dreamer who's got depression. My goal is to go inside a dreamer who's got serious anxiety or bipolar disorder or something like that, and really start to see what can we do to really help these individuals, potentially without pharmaceutical aid. At the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of pharmaceuticals. I understand their place and I completely appreciate them. And I have lots of patients who take them. But at the end of the day, natural sleep is very different than pharmaceutically induced sleep. And we'd love to be able to fix people's brains up if that were even possible.
You know, this is a good moment just to mention that you are a doctor, you have a degree in psychology. Is that right, Michael?
Yes, yes, yes. I apologize. Let me tell everybody about a little bit about my background. So I have a PhD in clinical psychology, but I'm actually medically board certified in clinical sleep disorders.
Right.
How the heck did you do that, Michael?
Yeah.
So I actually took the medical boards without going to medical school and passed. I'm one of 168 people in the world who've ever done that. And so I've been an actively practicing sleep specialist for 23 years. And it's been actually quite a wonderful journey, to be honest with you. I've really enjoyed, I'm pretty passionate, as you can tell.
Well, I wanted to make that connection because I think it's important that people know you have a real heartbeat in the mental health field as it connects to this, which is why I'm very glad Susie mentioned the report and the aspect of the report that deals with sleep. I think this is all very, it's all so connected, and particularly at this time in the world where mental health and sleep are both enormous problems. I want to just get to a couple of things that have been in the chat. And apologies, I'm not going to, everybody's name is in the chat, and Michael will read everything. And Michael's been generous enough to let us not only share his websites and everything, we are going to share his email address. So you will be able to contact him and continue a dialogue if that's what you want to do. And we are recording everything. This call is recorded, as all of them are, and then you get to watch it and share it with your friends and everything. 2 things, the impact of nutrition on sleep. Somebody particularly mentioned magnesium, and then the impact of aging on sleep.
Absolutely. So these are two of my favorite topics. So I'm super glad that you brought them up. So I still do see patients. It's a fairly limited number. I have I have a concierge practice if you're interested. Oh, Sam asked, does lucid dreaming help with PTSD dreams? We think that it could, by the way. That's a really interesting idea, and several people have started to look around at that. I apologize. I just saw that out of the corner of my eye.
Do
What
not
was the question again?
apologize. Do not apologize.
What was the question again, Nancy?
Nutrition on sleep.
Nutrition and aging. So here's the thing about nutrition is there's no question about it. What you eat affects the way you sleep. Period. End of story. Okay. So let's settle that argument right here, right now. Also, the timing of what you eat has a big effect on your sleep. So in my book, The Power of When, we looked at circadian timing for digestion. So this is another great circadian marker. Another little hint for people: eating at the same time every single day allows your body to know what to do, and you actually process your food more efficiently because your body is already ready and primed and pumped for doing that. So what you eat has a dramatic effect on your sleep. But let's talk about the two big offenders, and then we'll get into the nutrition side of things. Offender number one, caffeine. Sorry to say it, guys, but caffeine just is not a good idea for sleep. I'm not a decaf kind of guy. Okay, look, I like black coffee. I was born and raised on it, so I kind of get you. But at the end of the day, you have to understand caffeine has a half-life of between 6 and 8 hours. You can have your coffee. I recommend stopping at around 2 p.m. This way, by 10 o'clock at night, it's been 8 hours, and hopefully at least half of it is out of your system. Now, I guarantee you, we've got so many people on this call. There are lots of people out there, and I'm going to guess the majority of them, no offense here, probably live in Italy because they love their Italian coffees. I must tell you, every time I've been there, I've had the most delicious coffees I think I've ever had. They're going to say to me, Michael, I can have a cappuccino or an espresso late in the day and I can fall right to sleep. Well, let's be honest here. People have different caffeine sensitivities is one of the things that we're learning. And so some people can eat a chocolate kiss and be up for 3 days, and some people can drink a pot of espresso and go right to sleep, right? And so we do see sensitivities. However, what I am going to tell you is caffeine is a stimulant. Doesn't matter how you slice it. So even if you fall asleep, the quality of that sleep is diminished. So please, please, please stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Alcohol is another biggie. There's a really big difference, guys, between going to sleep and passing out. Okay? Just take my word on this one, okay? Alcohol is the #1 sleep aid in the world. Unfortunately, it is also one of the worst. So alcohol almost completely destroys stage 3-4 sleep, or beauty sleep. If you think about it, if you go out drinking really hard one night, you wake up the next day, you don't look too beautiful, do you? Right? So what happens is you actually get stage 3-4 sleep is almost completely knocked out by alcohol. And then the other big thing is dehydration. Once you start drinking alcohol, it's a diuretic. You start to go to the bathroom, then the sleep process itself. Basically, if you go out drinking hard, you wake up looking like a raisin, right? There's just nothing, there's like nothing left of you anymore. So hydrate, hydrate, hydrate is really important. And for alcohol, here's what I tell people. If you have 1 glass of wine, wait 1 hour, have 1 glass of water. If you have 2 glasses of wine, wait 2 hours, have 2 glasses of water. Don't go over 2 drinks. Here's what happens when you kind of go over 2 drinks is you can either get energized from alcohol because your body's saying, holy crap, you're sedating me. I need to get some excess energy to stay awake because you're toxifying your body when you're drinking. I mean, let's be honest, this is what the goal is, right? So please, please, please be careful about that. Now, let's talk about actual nutrition. So when I work with people, there's 4 things that I immediately ask them to get blood work done on. 1 is iron, 1 is magnesium, 1 is vitamin D, and 1 is melatonin. Those are the 4 biggies when it comes to sleep, okay? There's a ton of data on all of them. If you are interested specifically about things like magnesium, vitamin D, I have written 2,000-word blogs on them on my website, thesleepdoctor.com. Please feel free to check it out. All science-backed, all referenced, so you can have all the information that you're looking for. But am I a proponent of magnesium? Yes. Okay, why are you a proponent of magnesium, Michael? Well, it turns out that most people are deficient in magnesium. It turns out it does something for over 300 different parts of our bodies. So magnesium turns out to be a really big deal. Unfortunately, the soil has been so over-tilled that in many cases, the magnesium is not coming up through the stalks. And so the food that we're eating is not as nutrient-rich as we really want it to be. And so in many cases, additional supplementation of magnesium can be very, very helpful for people. Personally, I take my magnesium in the morning time with vitamin B. as a caveat, there's a specific reason that I do it that way. I have a cardiac issue and my doctor wants me to have magnesium in the morning time. She was very specific about that. In most cases, I actually recommend magnesium in the evenings, and I have a fun way for people to get it. It's called banana tea. So this falls into the nutrition as well. So it turns out that bananas are like nature's sleeping pill, okay? They're loaded with magnesium, but most people don't know the peel has 3 times the amount of magnesium as the fruit itself. No, I'm not going to ask you to eat the peel. I know that was running through everybody's head. Here's what you do. Go buy an organic banana, wash it off, cut off the tip and the stem, cut it in half, leave the fruit in it and the peel on it. So all I've done is I've washed off an organic banana and I've cut off the top and I've cut off the bottom. That's it, okay? Take these 2 halves of the banana, drop them into 3 cups of boiling water. Boil them till they turn brown, okay? Then drink the water. That's it. Banana water. That's what I'm talking about. That's the big recipe, okay? It's banana water. But here's what's so fascinating. Because you're boiling it with the skin and the banana, all the phytosteroids are actually in the water as well. It's tremendous help with absorption, and you get a great big boost of magnesium. What's fun about this is it doesn't interact with any medications. You can give it to seniors and you can give it to children. I had one mom make it at the beginning of the week and pour it into popsicle molds and give it to her kids as dessert. They had no idea. Boom, out like a light. It was beautiful. I love that kind of stuff.
Okay, grandkids are coming for a week. We're going to make banana tea.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Vitamin D is a big one. I can't stress vitamin D enough. I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona for 10 years. I mean, it's like the Valley of the Sun, guys. And honestly, still, we're seeing people with deficiencies in vitamin D. It turns out that vitamin D is incredibly important, but it's a circadian pacemaker. It helps keep your entire circadian system going. Again, I wrote a very long blog about all the details of vitamin D and the intricacies of what it is, but I'm highly, highly recommending this. And on a side note, there is a statistic that I found very interesting. While I am not a virologist, one of the things that I have discovered is that almost 90% of people who have died from COVID are vitamin D deficient. Let me repeat myself. The statistic that I have seen reasonably recently is over 90% of the people who have passed away from COVID were vitamin D deficient. So I really think people need to start thinking through this idea of supplementation specifically with vitamin D.
Michael, I'm going to move you on to aging because we have a lot of topics to get to. I'm sorry, and I know we could, this is the thing with Michael is this could be like a 4-hour conversation and everybody would love it. So you'll have to come back.
I will.
But talk a little bit about aging, and then I'm going to ask Christine to weigh in on something.
Absolutely, absolutely. So really quickly, people want to know how to get vitamin D. One way is the sun, but the other way is through a pill and supplementation. I personally take 5,000 international units every single morning. That's the normal daily allowance, I believe, is around 600. Am I putting a lot of vitamin D in my body? You bet. It's good for you. Trust me on that one. Let's talk about aging, right? So aging is a big one. But here's the thing. There's been recent data to show that if you're not sleeping well as you get older, that is more a sign of your health status than your sleep status. Okay. So this is a very interesting. So listen to what I'm saying. As we age, the good news here is that you should not be sleeping poorly. A lot of people think, oh, it's just a consequence of getting older, right? I'm just going to not sleep as well. No, 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 no. While I will admit to you, there are more challenges as we age. Here are a few. One of the things that we know is we get uncomfortable much easier and we get warm or cold much easier. Why is that? Because as we age, the subcutaneous fat that is beneath our skin begins to thin. And so our cushioning starts to thin. Number one, you may need a new mattress. You may need something that's like a pillow top that's a little bit more cushy and more comfy because your bones and your muscles are pounding against this mattress, right? So that's one thing that you want to think about is what are the pieces of equipment that I can use that can be helpful for me for sleep? To be clear, about 20 to 25% of everybody's sleep is basically based on this equipment idea. I believe that sleep is a performance activity. So I'm a runner, right? I can run a race in flip-flops, cutoffs with a torn t-shirt and a boombox on my arm, but my time's not going to be too good, right? But if I've got my Asics on, my dry fit wear, I can run a 7:30 mile, no problem, right? My performance is better because I have the right equipment. I would argue that sleep is the same way. If you have the right equipment, going into our senior years, I'm 53 years old, guys. This is very prevalent for me as well. going into these years, what we need to do is really understand our bodies, because it is going to be a challenge at times. And so if we can have the right, the right experience, the right equipment, the right supplementation, we can all sleep easily, very, very well into our 90s, even to our hundreds for sure.
Michael, that is incredibly encouraging. And you're a baby at 53. So thank you for all of that. Take a sip of water, hydrate yourself just for a moment while I ask Christine Mogadam from Cork Yoga, our wonderful sponsor for today, just to talk for just a moment about yoga and sleep. There must be some connection with that kind of movement and sleep. Christine?
Hi, Nancy. Yeah, definitely. I think there's different types of yoga. Personally, I really enjoy the restorative type of yoga in the evening. That's very slow and calming. There's also some great apps out there for that have great guided meditations and different, I don't know, Insight Timer is one of my favorites. It's free. It's something that I use, especially for anxiety and stress. So really, I think with yoga, choose the types that are very slow and calming to your body, because there are practices that are very energetic and
that makes thank you so much, Christine. And I think that's another, meditation and gentle movement. Michael, have you got a thought about that before we turn to technology?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you, Christine. And thank you for that recognition. One of the things that Christine's saying, which is really important, is there's different types of yoga, there's different types of meditation. And the fact of the matter is, most people don't know this, but meditation was not created to help people fall asleep, right? I have a news flash for everybody, right? That's not how it works, right? This is about enlightenment, right? This is about getting to another place. This is about self-actualization. There's a whole host of things there. But what's fascinating to me is every time I talk to people who go on like meditation retreats where they don't get an opportunity to speak to anybody and they're only meditating, they end up sleeping for the first like day and a half and catching up on all their sleep. And then, only then, can they really know and understand how that meditation seems to work with them. I have several patients who are TM meditators. So if you're familiar, transcendental meditation, right? So big time commitment. People really have to know what they're doing to understand how that kind of thing works. And interestingly enough, in many of my TM patients, if they're doing TM on a daily basis, they don't sleep as much. Their body actually doesn't seem to require sleep as much. I can't put my finger exactly on the data point that explains all of that, to be fair, but it's a phenomenon that I've seen happen in multiple times. And so what I love is the idea of taking Eastern philosophy, taking all of these amazing, amazing learnings and then adopting them where it makes sense to understand them for sleep. But to be fair, meditation originally wasn't created to help people get relaxed and comfortable. It was really to get people present and understand. To be fair, there are plenty of meditations out there that have now been designed to help with sleep.
Right.
Several different companies have got some pretty cool stuff out there that I like as well. So there's definitely some things out there for people to look for.
Okay, so this is a perfect segue into technology.
Exactly.
Technology, sleep apps, sleep tracking. Michael, I think you mentioned there's even now something called an orthosomnia, which is okay. Tell us about all of this and what to do about the technology that is in our bedroom, on our wrists. I think you wear the Oura ring, right?
Yep, I got the ring on. Absolutely. Okay. So first of all, should you track your sleep? So the answer is maybe. Okay. So there is this new disorder now called orthosomnia, where people have gotten so interested in the data that they're literally waking up in the middle of the night to see if they're sleeping well, right? They're checking it every single morning. It's cuckoo. Okay. It's cuckoo, right? But people kind of can get a little on the OCD side and kind of get into it. So let's talk about the trackers to begin with. As a general rule, let's be very clear about something. None of them work well. None of them work well, okay? Accuracy is an issue, and I'll explain to everybody why. Sleep is an incredibly complicated metric. If you're, let's say you're counting steps, okay? To be fair, that's a calculus problem, okay? The length of my leg, my gait, my daughter, who's advanced in math, she can do that problem in her sleep, literally, right? But sleep in and of itself, what do you measure? Do you measure how quickly you fall asleep? Do you measure the length of sleep? Do you measure the number of awakenings? Do you measure the length of awakenings? Do you measure the fast time to beauty sleep? Do you measure the fast time to REM sleep? By the way, I can go on for another 30 or 40 different variables that we can collect that would give us some piece of information about our overall general sleep. So the point I'm making here is sleep is an incredibly difficult concept to create a single number around. So when you look at your Whoop band or your Aura strap or your ring or whatever it's called, I don't know half of them anymore. Here's the thing to remember is the further you get away from your head, the less accurate the data is going to be. We measure sleep by brain waves. As far as I can tell, there are very few trackers on the market that actually measure brain waves. Most of them do it algorithmically. So they get information, let's say, from a ring form factor, and then they say, well, in stage 3 sleep, we know that these 3 things that we measure happen this way, so we must assume that it is stage 3-4 sleep. Great study just came out looking at many of these trackers versus something called polysomnography, which is official sleep testing. Here's what we know. These trackers are pretty good at telling you when you fell asleep, when you woke up, maybe a couple of awakenings in the middle. That's honestly about it from a consumer standpoint. Also, to be fair, the thing that I like the least, I'm not even as worried about the accuracy issues, Nancy, as I am like, what do you do with the data? Right? So like I get all this data on my ring. Now, to be fair, I know exactly what to do with the data. I'm a world-renowned sleep doctor, right? Like that kind of makes sense. But most people have no clue what to do with this data. And also there's no comparative analysis, right? Like I'm a 53-year-old Caucasian male. I'd like to know how other 53-year-old Caucasian males are sleeping around the world. Maybe I need to improve something. Maybe I'm doing really great, but I don't have any metrics by which to compare myself. So that would be helpful. And then the other big thing that I don't get about all the trackers is, okay, great. So I get 14 minutes of deep sleep. What's next? Like, what am I supposed to do about that? Unfortunately, nobody is telling people, okay, so you only got so much deep sleep. Well, here are 3 things that you can do to improve deep sleep. So what are those, by the way, Michael? Exercising daily. Single best way to improve the quality of your sleep is 20 minutes of cardio, guys. You don't have to run a marathon. 20 minutes. It can even be stretching. It can be yoga. It can be a whole host of things, but movement is very, very important for overall improving sleep quality. Technology in general isn't great in the bedroom, just to be honest with you. Why? Well, because one of the things is we're all looking at these things all night long. Oh, and by the way, if I hear one more time somebody say to me, I have to plug my phone in next to my bed because I use it as an alarm to wake up, I'm gonna throw up, okay? Like analog alarm clocks are about $6 at any place in the world, okay? You don't have to have your phone next to your head while you sleep. Multiple reasons. Reason number 1, whether anybody admits it or not, these things leak radiation, period, end of story, okay? I'm not a big EMF guy. I do know that there are EMFs that exist, and I do know that there are people who are EMF sensitive, all right? I don't happen to be one of those people, but if you are, this is a big no-no for you. I have one patient who actually found a specialized paint that painted the walls in their bedroom and created what's called a Faraday cage to be able to take out all of the electronic smog, as they called it. And that's the other thing I want to talk about is blue light technology, all of these different things that are going on in our bedroom in the evenings. Like, what is that all about? So I'm here to tell you that, let me put it to you this way. There was a great study done where they had 20 insomniacs. And they all had all kinds of, I can't fall asleep, I can't stay asleep, I use too much technology. They took them all out to the woods. They took them camping for 2 weeks. At the end of the camping trip, nobody had insomnia. Nobody, okay? If that doesn't tell you what's going on, I don't know what does, guys, right? It's really about understanding the importance of sleep and then just allowing it to happen. You know, you had mentioned several different quotes in my introduction, which was awesome, by the way. I'm definitely keeping this recording because I'm going to give that introduction myself. But one of my favorite sayings to people is very simple. Sleep is a lot like love. The less you look for it, the more it shows up, right? When you're out in life and you're trying to find that life partner, you never find that person. And the second that you stop trying so damn hard, that person ends up in your life. And that's exactly how sleep works. Sleep shouldn't be effortful. Sleep should be a process that you set your body up to do, that it naturally just takes over and does, right? And so being thoughtful before bed, it makes a lot of sense. So turn the lights down 90 minutes before bed. Me personally, I wear blue light blocking glasses. I know they look goofy. Hold on, I'll show you what one of them looks like. Grab one. So these are my blue light blocking glasses. And then they go over my readers so I can still read, right? And so here I am, right? I think I look like Elvis Costello, right?
I was
Or
going to say
Bono,
that that's pretty cool looking.
right?
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage,
Not bad.
right? I think I'm down with this. But at the end of the day, I put these on 90 minutes before bed, and it really does help. I know it looks goofy as heck, but it really does help. I have 2 children who are gamers, right? They would be gaming until 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. I walked in and I said, put these on, and they did, and they could still game, and then they could go to sleep. It was like a miracle happened at the Breus household, I swear to you. So really, there is technology, but there are ways to go against technology. And at the end of the day, one thing I will tell you is I'm the only sleep doctor in the universe that says it's okay to fall asleep with the television on. Yes, you heard it here, folks. It is okay to, what? This is pure heresy, Dr. Breus. How can you possibly say? So I'll tell you the story. When I met my wife many, many years ago, she said, if we ever happen to have a sleepover, Michael, you need to understand, I fall asleep with the television on. To which point I said, oh, don't you worry about that. I'm going to be a sleep doctor. I can fix that. I don't know how many of you have ever tried to fix something in your partner. Raise of hands. How many people have actually been successful at this endeavor? Because it didn't matter. I could be the world's renowned anything, and it wasn't going to work. So I moved the television out of the bedroom, and then she removed me from the bedroom. So I said, okay, message received. So I moved the television back in the bedroom, and I was allowed to stay. And here's what happened is I studied her to try to understand, because so many people fall asleep with the TV on. And what she told me was, she said, Michael, she says, I'm not watching it. She said, I'm listening to it. Right? My eyes are closed. And it's like, she says, it's like listening out of the corner of her ear. It's just enough of a distraction, she says, to turn off what she calls monkey mind, right? Which is like her mind is just going and going. I probably shouldn't do this when I'm talking about my wife, right? That's probably not probably a very good idea. Okay, so anyway, that was my best joke, guys. That was my best joke, right? But settling our brains down turns out to be an incredibly, incredibly important task. And so whatever way, shape, and form you can do that is probably okay, right? Televisions have timers built into them. 99% do. If you don't know what it is, ask your son or your grandson or daughter to figure it out for you, because they will know exactly how to run the remote and figure all that. That's what I had my son do, and it works perfectly now, right? So
I'm going to move you to a couple of other topics, watching the clock, so we can get to a few things. And I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of lightning round with me. So you give us a couple of minutes on
fast answers.
Cannabis and sleep.
So I'm a big fan of understanding more about cannabis and sleep. And so to be clear, I want to be the tip of the spear on this idea. I believe that if there is appropriate use of cannabidiols, depending upon what you use, and I am a fan of THC. So let me be clear, there's non-THC products out there for sleep, and there are THC related products out there for sleep. So to be clear, if you look at the evidence base on CBD, almost nobody has got the right amount of CBD in their products. Almost nobody. The data suggests 180 milligrams per dose to have any type of somnolent effect. That's literally almost a whole bottle in many cases of what you see out and about. Now, I'm sure there's somebody on here that does CBD and wants to have that discussion, and I'm more than happy to have that discussion. I've written 8 different 2,000-word blogs on cannabis and all of the different things about it. So I feel comfortable that I'm happy to have that conversation with people. But what I will tell you is I believe that cannabis is the next big thing for sleep. If used appropriately, I'm not talking about getting people stoned. I'm not talking about getting people high. I'm talking about getting people to sleep, okay? What I don't like is pharmaceutically induced sleep is different than natural sleep. We have an endocannabinoid system in our bodies that is not being used. If you look, what's really interesting is if you look at the endocannabinoid pathway and you look at the melatonin pathway, they both use the same highway, which is pretty interesting when you start to look at that. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of data because it's been federally illegal for so long. And so most of the data that we're seeing now is coming out of Israel and coming out of Belgium, who've been able to study it for quite some time. But I feel confident that within the next 1.5 to 2 years, we will see some cannabis-related sleep brands. Full disclosure, I want to be one of them. I'm looking for people who want to do that with me in a healthy, scientific way and really help people, because I really believe this is the next big break in sleep.
Wow. Okay. Well, there's definitely going to be, you'll be getting many emails. I have a feeling, because that is something we talk about cannabis a lot now, and we've done, that, and I'll just say, I'll make note that we should probably send the trend that we've written about this in the follow-up email. There's a lot of information that we can share. Okay. Melatonin.
So let's talk about melatonin, and especially having an international audience. It's very important that everybody understand this. Melatonin is a hormone. Okay, let me say that again. Melatonin is a hormone. You wouldn't walk to the local grocery store and get testosterone or estrogen, right? It's not appropriate to do that, but unfortunately, at least in the United States, it went under the FDA guideline, and it's readily available. So to be clear, if you're interested in using melatonin, there are a couple of instances where it makes perfect sense. Number one, if you're over age 55 and you've been tested and you have a decline in your melatonin production, guess what? This might be an appropriate time to take melatonin. Michael, what is the dose of melatonin? 95% of melatonin is now sold in an overdosage format.
Oh.
Wrong dose, guys. The correct dose is between 0.5 and 1.5 milligrams. Let me repeat that, between 0.5 and 1.5 milligrams. If you look at the data out of MIT, Dr. Wortman's lab, he was the person who showed that 1.5 milligrams brings plasma concentration levels up to the point where circadian rhythmicity is affected. That's all you need. So why are people buying more? They're buying it in 3, 5, and 10 milligrams, right? So here's what happens. More is not better in this situation. Less is better, okay? That's number one. Number two, the format you take it in depends upon the effectiveness. If you take it in a pill, you have to eat it, it has to go to your gut and has to get back up to your brain. So you don't take it like you would take an Ambien, let's say, right before bed. You would take melatonin 90 minutes before bed in order for it to actually have an effect. Other big thing that I use melatonin for is jet lag, right? So if folks out there, and this is a very international crowd, jet lag is humongously difficult, and melatonin can be helpful. Full disclosure, my gift to everyone here, if everybody goes to timeshifter.com,
exactly,
the free app, and you guys may remember Mickey Beyer-Clausen was here a few years back speaking about jet lag. Mickey and I are in business together with this app, and I've been on his advisory board for many, many years.
Mickey gave the actually Six Senses, gave Time Shifter to everybody when we were doing our Singapore summit, and it made an enormous difference. And he made a big point about 1 milligram and 3 milligram melatonin sublingual, not to swallow.
So sublingual is a little bit different. So when we look at sublingual, right, you can actually put that on board 30 minutes before bed, right?
So that's under your tongue,
under your tongue, and you've got to let it sit and count to 60. Don't count to 10. And by the way, it's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, like really make it a second. Don't be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because the longer it sits, the more it absorbs. I know sometimes it doesn't taste too good, but still. Now, one thing I do want to be careful about is I want to talk about melatonin use in children. For just a second. So I am not in favor of melatonin use for children, and I'm going to explain why. 99% of children have plenty of melatonin in their systems. That's number one, okay? Number two, melatonin is a hormone. I said that a couple of times, right? So here's the thing that's interesting. If you look at melatonin in Europe, it's by prescription only. So that's interesting, Michael. And if you look at it, what is it being prescribed for? At high dosages, it's a contraceptive. Let me repeat myself. Melatonin at high dosages is a contraceptive. Look it up, right? I can't think of anything worse for a young female developing body than have the introduction of a contraceptive when it's not appropriate, okay? If parents can't get their kids to sleep, parents need to figure out a behavioral method to work with their children in getting kids to sleep. Okay, it's not, and by the way, children shouldn't think, oh, I need to take a pill to go to bed. All right, this is not an ideal we want to propagate. Okay, remember the insomniacs who went into the woods, they didn't take any pills and they did just fine. So do kids, right? So again, now I will tell you there is one population of children where melatonin is appropriate, and it's in children on the autism spectrum. So it's very interesting when we look at this group of children, and at high dosages too, 3, 5, and 7 milligrams. This is a group of patients that melatonin actually is extremely effective in these high dosages. So I want to reserve that caveat. Also, there are some cases of extreme ADD and ADHD where melatonin can also be extremely appropriate for these children because their circadian rhythms can be off as well. Sorry,
Michael,
that was a very
before we get
lightning round.
into our final round of questions, everybody wants to know, what is your sleep ritual? What do you do? How do you go to sleep at night? We know your wife's watching TV.
Yes, my wife is watching TV. So I can tell you a whole host of different things that I do because not every night is the same. And so generally speaking, I'm in bed at midnight. That is my kind of hard rule, bing, bing, bing. And so what I like to do is in the evening times, so when I wake up in the morning, I do breath work, I do meditation, and I do PEMF therapy, so electromagnetic therapy for my lower back, which I personally have found all three of those to be great. And then I have a supplement stack that I take in the morning, and I'm off and running. I'm an intermittent faster, so I don't eat until much later in the day. Because I'm a nighttime chronotype, I actually don't even start eating until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I eat from 2 until about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. After I finish my meals, I make sure that I have my shower for the evening oftentimes, and then I'm either reading or watching something cool on Netflix. I'm really into auto racing these days, so I've been watching this Formula One series, which has been awesome. And I just kind of allow myself to chill. About an hour before bed, I do something called the power down hour. So if my bedtime is midnight, starting at 11, I take 20 minutes and I do stuff that just has to get done. So for last night, I actually looked over some ideas that you and I had talked about to make sure that I was going to be very present this morning. I made sure that my son's sports equipment was exactly where it was supposed to be. Those are the kind of things you do during that 20 minutes. The other second 20 minutes is for hygiene. So wash your face, brush your teeth. Here's a hint for people who wear makeup. So this is very interesting, but most people who wear makeup, they don't remove the makeup until the very last thing in the evening. And what they do is they get in front of a mirror and it's got these incredible bright lights. You're basically looking at the sun, guys, when you're taking off your makeup at night, okay? You're not doing it yourself. 6 o'clock is the no makeup zone hour, okay? Just relax, be your natural self. You don't have to look at these crazy big lights all the time, right? So please, please, please take 20 minutes to do some kind of hygiene, and then 20 minutes for some form of meditation, relaxation, prayer. There's a whole host of different things that you can do. Christine, you know, looking at, for example, yoga, there's something called yoga nidra that is very calming and relaxing. There are certain positions that you can be in. I believe one's called savasana, right? Is that right? Where the corpse pose, I think that's what it's called. Right. So like there are definitely things that we can do, but remember something, guys, you got to land the plane. You got to have enough runway to do it. Sleep is not an on-off switch. It's like slowly pulling your foot off the gas and slowly putting your foot on the brake. It's a process. Let it happen. Michael,
I mean, we have hit 11 o'clock. It's unbelievable. It goes so fast. We still have so much to talk about. I want to thank you so much for everything, for all of this information. The chat has been just lit up with information. And yes, everyone in the follow-up will get Michael's email. I also want to mention that Michael has confirmed he will keynote in Tel Aviv. So I hope many of you will join us at the summit, our Global Wellness Summit. It'll be our 15th in Tel Aviv, November 15th through 18th. Very excited about that. I also want to mention that this Friday, March 26th, we have our March Wellness Moonshot Full Moon celebration. One of my questions is, what about the moon affecting sleep? But we'll get to that next time. And then next, so please, we'll send a link so you can register for that. That's 10 o'clock Friday. And next Tuesday, Susie's going to lead the Wellness Sector Spotlight Call focused on mental wellness, also at 10 a.m. Now, if everyone would just unmute and give Michael a round of applause and some global love.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Good time.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye.